Today's speaker today, many of y'all already know him, he's our current city manager. I've asked him to speak today to kind of see where we're at with the city of Gilmer. I'm going to call it the state of Gilmer. Our city manager, Greg Hutson.
Can everybody hear me okay?
What?
Except Randy. So this is my second year, going on my second year for the city. I've been through one budget cycle, so I've learned a lot. And I was told the mayor, when the year started, I said, we've got a lot to do. And we do. And we're currently getting some things done, or in the process of getting things done. I want to start with the airport. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Economic development is not just about bringing businesses to town, but it's the overall picture. It's the whole piece of pie. There's several slices in there. And I'm going to talk about some of those, but I'll start with the airport again. At the airport, there are two things in process right now with Texas Department of Transportation, the aviation division. One is what's called the RPZ, Land Acquisition Around the Airport. RPZ stands for Runway Protection Zone. So we pretty much wrapped it all up except for a little hiccup that's occurred as it relates to the future development of the runway, from lengthening it, make it longer than 4,000 feet to 5,000 feet. In that process, the runway protection zone is part of it. Well, right now, in addition to that, we've got a master plan that's in process. And a master plan, I'll just give you the definition of I think it's too long for me to memorize it, but an airport master plan, in case you didn't know, is provides guidelines for future airport development in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term that will satisfy aviation demand in a financially feasible way, while at the same time resolving the aviation, environmental, and socioeconomic issues that exist in the community. So that's going to take up to 6 months. That's how detailed and big this master plan is. The company that was selected is Kaufman and Associates, which partners with our city engineer, Stan Hayes Engineering. They're very familiar with airport master plans. They've done 10 in Texas, one of them being Arlington Regional, Tyler Pounds, and the Gregg County East Texas Airport. So they're very familiar with developing master plans. And I told the TxDOT individual I was talking to, my goal is for the Gilmer Airport to be the best little airport in East Texas. That's my goal, that's my vision. And I always say, there's a saying, without vision, whether it's people, whether it's ideas, things don't get done, it perishes. And so we have plans for that airport that I think would be good for the city, for the county here, and for economic development. The mayor and I visited Mount Pleasant Airport, I don't know, back in the fall of 2016. You know, they at one time were 4,000 square feet, and they say, you go to 5,000 square feet, it's a game changer. Because now corporate jets will be able to come in, and when businesses come and look at areas to relocate or to open a new business, a lot of those executives fly in. They want to get in, they have to look, and they want to get out. And so we want to make that readily available for them to come and look at Gilmer, to come and look at the county. We've got other things going on. Starting in 2019, I believe that's the schedule for the rehab of the runway, the aprons, and the taxiways. So that's going to be going on at the airport. There are other issues related to fencing that we'll have to take care of so that wildlife doesn't come across the airport while you're taking off or landing. On the east side of the airport, west side of the airport, we have an earthen berm there that needs to be knocked down. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on, and I'm excited about the future of that airport. I will tell you, some things crop up. When you do things, you discover things as you're turning things over, so to speak. And Steve, I have to tell you, we got a notification today that with the obstruction survey that's going on right now, that there is what they said an antenna tower. They gave the longitude and latitude. It's over at the Mooney property, that cable tower for the cable, when you had the cable business. Well, they identified that as a problem. I said, well, what are the, you know, they said it's 206 feet. I said, well, what are the obstruction requirements? And it can't be anything over 16 feet. So I'm learning things. This is my first rodeo as it relates to learning things on an airport. And it's really interesting because he said there are a lot of other towers around that are obstructions. But he said, are y'all constructing this? I said, no, it's been there for a very long time. Well, we must not have known about it. That's like, well, obviously. But anyway, it's not going to be a problem. And so, so I'm really excited about that airport. The other thing we're working on, as you probably read and know about, is the parks. You know, again, I always say if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And when I say the parks, that's all 5 parks. Because the master plan that's currently being done in process will address all the 5 parks. And you have to have all the parks in the city to get funding from the Texas Parks and Wildlife. And so that's what we're doing. So we're going to address a lot of the other parks. Roosevelt Park will be one. You know, that you go down that, I forgot what street thing that is, that goes right through the park and dead ends into the railroad track, but it doesn't matter. That's going to be removed, and that park will now become one big green space instead of having a road come through it. We'll probably address little areas where you can grill at and just enjoy being in the park there. Same thing, Quail Run, Avenue Park, you know. We turned over a rock and found out something. Abbey Park is actually owned by the Northeast District Baptist Association. Really, and it says Carrot City of Gilmer. I don't think we own that park. What does that mean? Because we can't spend tax money on that park in the future. So we have to get that resolved. So I got on the internet and Googled Northeast District Baptist Association, and it appears they're no longer. So, you know, we've got things that crop up, and they say government moves at a snail's pace. Well, there are certain reasons, and that's, you know, other than, yeah, I get that, but there are things that crop up that's going to take a while to resolve. But, having said that, we've got about 4 years to resolve it because the funding for the park, you know, we're going to fund it by donations. We're going to fund it by grants. And then the next thing people ask, are we going to fund it with property taxes? No, we're not going to. I won't present that to the council to fund it with property taxes, but I'll tell you what, there's another bond issue that's coming up that's more important than parks. I'm just going to say that's the school bond issue. That's another part of AEDC that businesses look at. Okay, I'm a business owner, I want to bring, let's say, 100 jobs. What do your schools look like? That's a condition. That's one of the factors they check off, great schools. They look at parks too. They look at healthcare too. They look at, believe it or not, I read this about 3 weeks ago, they look at what your code enforcement is like. And so, again, economic development is a whole piece of the pie, not just one slice here and you've got economic development going on. On the parks deal, we recently, it's tied in with, we're getting, I don't know when we're going to close, but we're getting ready to close on the 18 plus acres that was sold by the EDC to the Amberee. And that's about 18 point, I think it's like 18 and a half acres. And they're getting ready to ramp up to build the activity building so that the next, what do you call it? I want to call it a barn dance. Is it a barn dance? Okay. Except it's going to be a metal building dance this time. That's ramping up. When we had a hotel motel study, and we just got the results back from that. During the interview, I thought, I was really 50-50. Don't know where this could land. And so I read the report, and it's not negative in the sense of you just can't build a hotel there. It was positive, I think, given after that interview how I felt and how others felt, that this wasn't going to be a good report, but it was a decent report. And I've been in contact with a businessman in the community that wants to build a hotel here in Gilmer. So that's a good thing. Now, on that sale of that land to the Amberee, we asked him to reserve 3+ acres for the development of a hotel. Which I think would be great, that if the park's being done, we've got the expansion of the Civic Center, and if we could have the Gilmer build that activity center and a hotel there, that's going to be a place of activity, a place of development. So I'm excited about that. I'm hopeful. I'm not overly optimistic on it, but it's a good thing. let's see, what else have I got as it relates to the park? I talked with, as you know, not long after I got here, I felt like we had one hand tied behind our back because all of our EDC money goes to Lake Gilmer because you didn't know what to pay off of the debt on that lake. So I called Hilltop Securities about that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they said we can't do anything until July 2021 because of the covenants on there. You cannot call those bonds any earlier than that. My question to him was, how can we restructure that to help obviously continue paying for the debt, refund that issue, but also in the process be able to have monies available for the development of the park. And then one of the other benefits of doing that is now, so it's going to we'll refund the debt on Lake Gilmer, and now we've got some debt on the park. How much, we don't know yet, obviously. But now, after that's done, we've got a little extra money to do economic development with the sales tax, assuming the legislature doesn't get rid of it, which they're looking at. It's a home run all the way around. And so, just want to let you know, we're working on that. I was talking with Brian this morning, our public works director, and we started talking about, well, how are we going to pay for the maintenance? I said, one step at a time, Brian, one step at a time. I'm not going to tackle that one yet. Then we've got the healthcare facility issue. We have no healthcare here other than what's down the road. And, I tell people, man, if I'm having a heart attack or you're having a heart attack, I don't want to wait for the ambulance to get there and then go 20 minutes to the hospital. And so there is an individual that owns some property here, like 6 acres, and they want to donate it to the city for a write-off because property valuations are pretty high, and most everybody knows that. And I'm going to talk about that too here in a little bit. What we want to do is be able to, it'll need some work on getting rid of the structure that's currently there and grading the land so it's ready to build on. And I talked with our EMS director, Camp County EMS, who has, his friend is the administrator for the hospital in Pittsburgh, and then he knows either Longview, I think it's Longview Regional, he knows somebody there too. And I just kind of put the feeler out, would they be interested if we pretty much gave them a land $1 a year, ready to build on, would they be interested? And there was a name that popped up, said, yeah, we'd be interested. And I'll be honest, it's East Texas Medical Center and UT Health Sciences, or UT Health System over here, are merging, and I think it's Advent is the name of the new company, and they're interested, but they talked to us in April when the merger gets complete. So there's a potential check mark as it relates to economic development to bring healthcare into here to be like 24/7. It's not going to be a hospital, but our goal is to have it be 24/7 staffed by a doctor on each shift, and 2 or 3 rooms, whatever, x-ray, that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll have something here so that they can, the patient has to go there, they stabilize them, then transport them, I call it, to the mothership, so to speak. So that's ongoing as well. Barry Smith. Would you, Danny, I didn't talk with the company, the contact information he gave me, but I've left them 2 voicemails now. So I'm trying to get them to contact me. Let's talk code enforcement. As most of you know, we have a code enforcement officer now. He was our existing animal control officer. While animal control, I said, well, not the budget year, I said, there's no way he's picking up animals 24 hours a day, 8 hours, 40 hours a week. So either goes to part-time or we make him our code enforcement officer. And being a code enforcement officer kind of requires a little bit of a different individual. They need to go out and tell people, knock on their door, you got problems here and we need to talk about it. The issue with code enforcement here in Gilmer is for compliance. It's not to make more money. It is to get compliance on issues that relate to code enforcement. And I'll be honest with you, in summertime, #1 issue, grass and weeds. Great place when you have high weeds and that rodents can hide. Great place for abandoned vehicle for rodents to hide. Well, guess what? Rodents have diseases and all that becomes a public health issue. That's why there's going to be a push on abandoned vehicles. If you haven't seen it now, you're going to see more of it. We've got to do something about it. Again, when business comes here to see Gilmer, first impressions are everything. They see abandoned vehicles laying everywhere. Guess what? That's a negative impression. And speaking of impressions, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit as it relates to the school. When we had the hotel motel study done, the lady came down from Minnesota or Wisconsin it was. She said, I want to go look around the city. And drove around the city. Let's go see the school. I said, okay. Well, the first thing she saw, I'm just going to say this, the first thing she saw was the football stadium. And she was very impressed. She goes, man, y'all take your football serious? I said, yeah, it's pretty much a religion here in Texas. And but first impressions are everything. I said, yeah, they're working on a bond package, hopefully for a new school and everything. And but she was very impressed with the school because her first impression was that football stadium. And so it's not all a bad thing. It's a good thing. The second thing, some of the things we've completed, the Hickley station. We've got a new lift station over there by where Dean Hall's property is at, if you know where it's at, where the Dairy Queen. In the back, there's a brand new lift station, sewer lift station. That's been online probably a couple of months now. We finished with the Mockingbird well. That's bringing a new well online, a redundant well in case one well goes down or two wells goes down. Now we have this new well that can bring water into the system. In addition to digging that well, which is completed, we own 3.5 acres on that Pine Acre side on the very far, probably the northeast side of the city. We still have a fence to put up, a little road for access over there, but in addition to that, we put a new distribution line down Calvert and, let's see, what's the other street? Calvert and Carlon. We also have about 4 new fire hydrants there. There were several areas there that didn't have fire hydrants, and now they've got them, so that should be good on their insurance as well. So that's all good. It was interesting, Brian was telling me they had a 1-inch line that fed those houses, little small 1-inch line, built a long time ago, and now they've got an 8-inch line that distributes water to those people in Pine Acres. We've got some internal initiatives I just want to bring up to you as well. You know, I spoke about code enforcement, which obviously is ordinance driven. One of the things that starting mid-April that would be my top priority is to rewrite ordinances here in the city. We've got things we need to be proactive about. One of the things I'll give you an indication of is there's a movement. Where I came from, it was a major headache for me, and that's called tiny homes. If you're familiar with tiny homes, they are tiny, tiny, tiny homes. And in Sansom Park, they could not develop tiny homes because a housing structure, the primary residence had to be at least 1,300 square feet. And so we're going to be looking into tiny homes here because I'll be honest with you, we don't want them coming here to Gilmer. The people that brought that in were Republic of Texas people. I'll just be honest, I want to sidetrack a little bit. I've never met anybody that you couldn't reason with, and you could not reason with these people. None. Zero. It was almost like a cult. I'm not talking about conservative. I'm just talking about Republic of Texas people don't recognize that at that site they came in. We don't recognize Sansom Park as a city, legally incorporated. Matter of fact, you ask for their driver's license, they don't recognize the state of Texas as a legal entity that can issue driver's. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And I know there's probably some of them around here, but I'm just telling you, it's not a good thing. Next to the deal about rewriting the ordinances, we're going to do a CAFR. Most people don't know what a CAFR is. It's a Certificate of Achievement for Financial Reporting. What does it do? It doesn't lower interest rate a city gets, but it gives credibility that a city has their financial house in order. It gives credibility to school districts, it gives credibility to counties. And this CAFR is issued by the Government Finance Officers Association, and only 2% of counties, cities, agencies, school districts get that designation, and we're going to get it. I guarantee you we're going to get it here. And then I want to give a shout, some of the other things that we're looking at, I want to give a shout out, and I can't tell you how much I really appreciate this organization, and it's the Gilmer Industrial Foundation. They are doing economic development here and trying to get businesses here, and if you don't know, acquired 74 acres up the road here, about 1.8 miles out of the city. And I really appreciate the work that this industrial foundation is doing, because it's going to help Gilmer turn the corner, I think, as it relates to what they're trying to do. When you're talking to, I'll be honest with you, when we went to the transportation summit, I don't know if it was this, I think it was this last one of the year before in Hot Springs, in Sulphur Springs. The vice president of distribution and supply chain, something like that, she had talked about they're looking for another distribution center. They'd love to build in San Antonio or Houston, but the real estate's so expensive, it's cost prohibitive. So they consider looking at anywhere in Texas, even if I remember right, even if it was down the road from where they've got one over in Mount Vernon and Mount Pleasant. And
What company are you talking about?
Lowe's Distribution. And so the contact or the go-between person is the executive director of EDCOG, Mr. Cleveland. And so I called him, I said, you know, I got permission with the Industrial Foundation that we want to be contenders for that, because there's 74 acres here. Do you have anybody from the county here? Because I kind of said, you know, it's out in the county, but there's up to 100% available on your taxes. I said up to, I didn't say 100%, I said up to, even if it was 5%, whatever. And possibly up to free land for you, $1 a year, whatever, depending on. And so I said, you know, we want to be contenders for it because Kilgore's in the mix. And really, I want Gilmer to be able to offer, be competitive in bringing businesses here. I went to school about 3 weeks ago, a week-long school in Houston, and I learned a lot of stuff, but one of the things they said, there's about 15,000 economic development organizations in the country, roughly. But you only got 3,000 businesses really ready to rebuild, put a new business there or move. Only 3,000 of the 15,000. And so what have we got to do? Well, cities do have one of the biggest things that a city can do for economic development is business retention and expansion. And so that's another thing that we're getting ready to start with, to meet with the different businesses around here, talk to them about their needs, any issues they have. Would they be willing to expand? Because the biggest cheerleaders for a city is your existing businesses. They have networks, and they tell, man, you know, Gilmer's very business friendly. They're doing this, they're doing that. I'm just saying, they're some of your biggest cheerleaders for a city, and so there's a path there that we're going to be going down as it relates to that. Having said that, the last thing I just kind of want to mention, it's an idea that's still percolating in my head, and that is partnering with faith-based organizations for community redevelopment as it relates to housing. Some housing, it looks to be substandard and people live there. That's an issue that the city has to address. And I'd really like to partner with faith-based organizations to get that done. One of the biggest examples of that started in the mid-cities, in Fort Worth, Dallas, First Baptist of Euless. They started an organization called Six Stones. Now, Hearst, Euless, and Bedford partner with Six Stones to do rehab within the community, whether it's mowing a yard. You have elderly people who can't mow. And it's an issue, it's a problem to issue a citation to a lady that's on fixed income, but she can't mow her yard, so what do? Well, that's where the faith-based organizations come in, or other organizations that do community outreach and help address issues like that. It might be painting, it might be putting new eaves on or soffit or whatever it is, but I'd like to see some of that here, because some cities, and Gilmer's not one of them, are gorillas, and they just kind of beat you into submission, and our council doesn't want that, and I don't want that. So what's the option? And that is, again, to partner with other organizations to reach out to people to get things done and be involved in the city in a partnership. And so that's another thing that will be looked at in the near future. But there's so much to do, it's just like you just chip away a little bit at a time, and eventually we'll get there. And that's really about it. I think that pretty much covers everything that we're looking at or going to look at. But I do want to give a shout out to the council. The council's been very supportive. You have a supportive council about getting things done here in Gilmer. Some of it's not going to be easy. There's going to be complaints, and we get that. That's just a fact of life. With that having said, if I'll take any questions if y'all got it. Yes, sir.
I know last year, maybe the year before, and within the last couple of years, there was kind of a group which met with council time to it and about tidiness of properties, yard maintenance, so forth. Where is that going now, or is it?
I don't think I was there when that group met with him. I don't remember. remember. I came in November 1st and actually took over city manager January 1st of 2017. So I don't know the answer to that.
Well, is that code enforcement officer, is he in charge of that?
It would be. If there's organizations that want to work with the city, they would work through him. He
You're
could tell
talking
them.
about the concerns that the people having about the properties and the blight and all that. That's what he's saying. We made, or Greg assigned or gave the duties of a new code enforcement officer. We had a code enforcement officer, we still do very often, but we have another code enforcement officer who was our dog catcher. Now he's our code. He's gone to school taking tests, and he is being proactive in this. People are calling City Hall now, won't know, what are we doing about towing these cars off? What's going to happen to this and that? Because they're hearing this from neighbors and people, because our code enforcement officers going around talking to them and saying, you need to do something for this, and we're giving you notice, and, you know, we're being courteous right now. And next you're going to get a letter, then you're going to get a citation, and then we don't have to tell you again. Once we've notified you about this problem, if it's a reoccurring problem, just give you a citation. And it's going to aggravate some people, and we're sorry, but you have to have code enforcement within a city. That's why you live in a city, and it has regulations and certain things that need to happen to it. I know we had some places that were in terrible disrepair that finally got redone and fixed up. And I know I drive all over the city, and I know, like a lot of y'all, a lot of people, or I did, I stuck to specific routes and did specific things in specific areas. But there's places in this town that you just wouldn't believe the condition of some of the houses and some of the people that are living in these houses and the stuff that they have around their house. They don't see that as being a problem. And, well, if you live out in the country, it's not a problem. But when you live in a city and there's certain rules, and you have to abide by these certain rules, and that's what we're trying to get back with our code enforcement officer. They're proactive.
Part and parcel of it's going to be education. One complaint that we got yesterday or Friday, you know, this lady talked to us about, man, police department's going to be arresting people because of vehicles or towing them off or something. No, police department's not going to be doing that. And she's, you know, said that we have an ordinance which is a law, a local law, as it relates to abandoned vehicles. And they said, you mean I can't have that on my own personal property? No, ma'am. And so part of it, a lot of it's going to be an education process. The substandard housing really caught between the rock and a hard place, because in some substandard housing, people live in there. It puts us in a difficult position because here's the deal. We may look like the bad guy to kick them out or to tell them they need to go somewhere, but the alternative is leave them there, and if that house collapses on them, we could be held up for a lawsuit because we didn't enforce building code or code enforcement. And so an example is, remember in Irving, when they had the Cowboys training camp there, and that big old structure collapsed. There was a storm came through. It was like, I mean, it was pretty sturdy, you know, it kind of looked like a humongous tent, but they were practicing in there, some of them were, and the winds came along and blew it down. Well, fortunately for the city of Irving, they were part of the lawsuit, but they didn't have to pay anything because they had their documentation as it relates to the inspections on that structure, the building code, the code enforcement, everything. And so they came out fine because they had everything in order and they were following what the code says. And there is an international building code, international residential code that most cities have to adopt. I'd say they do adopt, they have to by law adopt them. And those are pretty strenuous codes. And so, you know, hopefully people won't really view us as, man, they're just being mean and all that. No, we're a city government, and we have to follow the law too, just like everybody else does, but we need to, we're gonna tailor as much as we can to Gilmer. It's not gonna be Dallas code that's gonna be enforced here, it's gonna be a law set up for Gilmer without breaking the law. I'll just give you an example with those, the International Building Code, Residential Code, you can file amendments to it for your city there, and so we're gonna look into that whole process. But like I said, we've got a lot to do, and I enjoy staying busy. I hate being bored. And so, and my door's always open. If you got any questions, feel free to drop by. Doesn't mean I'll always be there. I was telling the mayor, last Monday and Tuesday was the busiest day for me with meetings since I've been here. I don't think I got to sit down at my desk more than 10 minutes. But feel free to drop by anytime. The doors are open.